is a light that lives within you, a quiet strength that's always there. Beyond the fear, beyond the stories, a love that's waiting everywhere. You are more than all you've carried, more than every wound you've known. Life is gently calling to you to remember and come home. Take a breath, open your heart. There is beauty waiting here. Every moment is inviting something beautiful to appear. You are love, you are joy, you are present, you are free. Every step you take encouraged brings you home to you. You are whole, you belong. Love is a higher law. Come alive, come alive. The miracle is who you are.
Holy cow, welcome everybody. There's a new song. It's a new song that I created after Ron, the producer here, suggested to use my own music. And oh my gosh, it's so amazing. I'm so excited that it's there. Welcome to episode 6 already of SoulsSpectives, from survival to soul. And grateful for everybody who's here watching. And today is going to be part 3 of the vulnerability series. And last week I was exploring about how how do we stay open to life, even though life has given us multiple reasons to not reopen. And today I want to bring us into the courage it takes to show up to life, for the purpose of knowing ourselves and building our relationship with self and life. So one of the things that for me was huge in my own healing is rejection. I longed for belonging my entire life. And for the most of my life, I was in the wrong room. It's kind of like, I often liken it to the story of the ugly duckling, right? I've always loved that story. The ugly duckling, it's a baby duckling, a gosling. It's black and it's kind of rugged looking, and it's trying to find its home. And it goes with the pigs, it goes with the cows, it goes with the donkeys, it goes with the geese, it tries to find its home in all these places, and every place it got kicked out, it got rejected. That's me. There's a reason why I relate to that, because it was like everywhere I would try to find my belonging since early childhood. I would get rejection. It's not that I didn't have places where people saw me and they did meet me. And those are the people that helped my own inner flame to continue going forward. But for the most part, I experienced a whole lot of rejection. And my deepest longing is belonging. And that's a mutual longing that we all have. That's a place of connection, right? And just, I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath before I go any deeper. I think I'm going to play my flute again today, like I did last week, to help land in this, because again, it's a deep topic, belonging. Where have you felt like, you just don't fit or you don't belong? And I think every one of us has. It doesn't matter what walk of life we come from, because we're all unique. We all have our own uniqueness. Even if we have similar things that we can relate to, we are all unique. And sometimes, quite often, that uniqueness gets squashed by environments, family, people, workplaces, where it's not the collected agreement that that's okay. So take a deep breath with that. Belonging is one of our deepest biological, emotional, relational needs. Even more than food, we need belonging. And when we look at the world right now, we see that, holy cow, there's so much separation. There's so much individuation. There is almost a a false pride, saying, I don't need to belong. And that is so not true. That's just a tough bravado hiding the truth that we want to belong. I learned a practice called Jin Shin Do. It's a kind of acupressure, but it's working with the reverse flows, for those of you who know acupressure, to flush out the backwaters of energetic stuff that's still holding. And a line that came from that teaching that I never ever forgot is, whatever has a big front has an even bigger back. So take a deep breath in. Whatever has a big front has an even bigger back. So the big front means the bravado, the ego, the protection, the identity that screams at you rather than is just being what it is, right? And I know I've been there, and I'm pretty sure everybody has been there, at least a good 90% of humanity, if not more, where because we felt rejection, we had to create an alternate self to compensate for that, to not feel the pain of not belonging. And then we adapt, we contort, we like, for me, a lot of my life, even though I was searching for my, to connect to my whole self, I was a chameleon. I would adapt to the room. And that's what I had to learn to do when I was a kid, because I never knew what was going to meet me on that day. So I had to really, really read the room. And so, and then go to school. I was bullied at school, so I had to read the schoolyard. I had to read the classroom. I would go home from school one day and the bullies liked me, and the next day I'd go to school and I'd be hearing, okay, you're going to get beat up by Camille after school. And I'm like, so that's the foundation. And I've tended to keep attracting most of my life similar situations in workplaces and, environments, even spiritual communities. I'll go a little bit more into that later. But I'm going to play the flute, and I want this to be a song for you. Everything I do is improvised. And so I'm going to invite that this song can soften and touch that part of you that had to toughen up. And it's a survival technique. It's nothing wrong with it. What comes wrong with it is when we start to believe that that is our identity too. We need our masks. We need our personas to meet the world, right? We need a certain amount of that. That's normal, right? But when we start to identify with the mask, with the persona that we've created to survive, that's where it gets complicated. That's where we get lost. And that's where it's not a useful space to be, or a useful way to see ourselves. Because then the more that I identify with my survival persona, and I've had many. I wrote a poem once many years ago. It's like, I was looking in the mirror like, wow, how many identities have I already known? How many faces have I shown the world, right? How many different aspects do I have that make me me? And when we're really honest, we all have that. We're one person when we go to the doctor. We're another person when we go to the cafe. We're another person when we go to the concert. We're another person when we're in the home of our family origin. Right? Where all the old, patterns get reactivated from childhood that are in the unconscious. We're like, whoa, what happened? Where did I go? Right? So we all have different faces, and it's okay. As long as we know them. As long as we can see, when am I going into that mode, and when am I going into this mode? And I'm not identifying with it. So I'm going to take a deep breath with you here. And just tune in to that frequency of not belonging. And it could make your eyes well with tears, but what I invite you to do through that is to breathe. Because the key to healing is not dissecting and identifying what is, it's sitting with it with love and grace. And our breath helps that energy to unravel in our nervous system. That's why somatic work is so important. We can only do so much with our mind. We can only access so much with our thinking. The deeper call is to access from our embodied state, so we can feel to heal. That's what I've been saying for years. We have to feel it to heal it. So I invite you to take a deep breath. I'm going to play the flute. And I just invite you to meet yourself with tenderness. Wherever there's echoes rippling to the surface through the things I'm saying and sharing here, so that a part of you can come home today, maybe in this episode. You can land a little bit more in yourself with a little bit more gentleness and a little bit more love. Because that's really the ultimate movement behind everything I do, is wanting to create an environment where you, the listeners, my clients, people who read my books, can take a deep breath and say, oh my God, I make sense to myself finally a little bit more. Oh my gosh, I understand a little bit more. And through that understanding, our nervous system expands versus contracting tighter when we get triggered. We start to expand. And as we expand, then we start to gain more access to ourselves. We gain more access to life. We start to build a deeper relationship. And so today's episode is really focusing on, we have to belong to ourselves first in order to belong in any place or with anyone. In order for that relationship to be real, true, and coherent, first we have to belong to ourselves so that we're not negotiating who we are to get the love that we need, to have the connection that we need. And I'm going to go deeper into that later and share some of my experiences in that journey. But for now, just take a deep breath. I'm going to invite you to call back any and all pieces of yourself that you abandoned unknowingly because you needed to survive, right? No judgments. Where you became quieter, where you stopped asking questions because, we're in a world that says you should know everything and nobody knows nothing. It's a really funny reality. When you really look at reality, it's like we got to laugh. We got to laugh at our foolhardiness and how we meet ourselves in life sometimes. It's quite fun, actually. Painful at times, but when we can start to laugh at ourselves and see just the silliness of some of our stories without negating the harm, but to look at, and the intelligence of the stories we create. But it reminds me of a line in my favorite movie, Michael. It's called Michael with John Travolta, and he plays an angel. And in one of the scenes, he says, you got to learn how to laugh. It's the way to true love. And I see that as true. I've experienced that as true. And it's when we take ourselves too seriously that we lose that inner child connection. We lose our ability to laugh at silliness, at the absurdity of things at times. And laughter is like an immediate pattern breaker. When you can laugh at yourself, like I started learning to laugh at myself when I was getting called into fears, right? And fear used to just rule me. Anxiety used to rule me. And then I had this day, I'm sort of going on a tangent. The show is becoming a little bit different than what I planned, but it's still on track somewhat. But so one day I just was like, fear, just stop. And then I had this vision like, oh my God, fear is like a really, really bad door-to-door salesman. And I keep buying. And why do I keep buying? And I laughed so hard when I saw that as a visual cartoon. Sometimes I think in cartoons. It's a good medicine. Think in cartoons sometimes. It really helps to shift the inner state. And when I saw him, like, yeah, it's really true. Fear is always going to come knocking as long as we're alive. It's always going to be knocking, trying to sell us something, right? False evidence appearing real, right? But if we choose to face everything, right, and return to ourselves, that's a whole different dance, right? And so with fear, I invite you to adopt that. It's a bad salesman. Why do we keep buying? I said I would have this dialogue. I got a whole cupboard of all of your appliances that you're telling me that work and they don't work. So I'm choosing to buy elsewhere. I'm going to choose to invest in the return of my own self coming home, not listening to the fears and anxiety anymore. So that was a real turning point for me when I started finding humor, loving humor, not diminishing humor, loving humor at our humanity. I was in Scotland for a while, and there they know how to laugh at our humanity, man. We laughed from morning, noon, and night. It was hilarious. One of my favorite places to be. So we're going to invite that into this deep one. But if we can bring some levity into it, then it also will help move the energy a little bit more. So take a deep breath. Tune into even one experience that you can tell connects to many experiences where you felt you didn't belong, and the impact it had in your body. Perhaps you tightened, you contracted, you withdrew, right? You isolated. These are the things we tend to do, right? Or you overcompensate, or you overextend, or you overgive to get the love and the belonging that you need, right? I've done all of those, so I'm very familiar with that. So just tap in with simplicity and kindness, no heaviness. Just wow, okay, this is a reality of pretty much every human being, even if we don't talk about it in the coffee shops, and the places we go. It is a shared reality. So you can feel good recognizing this. It doesn't have to be heavy. Take some deep breaths and just call yourself back home and bring to mind moments where you felt 100% you, because we all have those too. They're little glimpses of that true part of us that's still there underneath the layers. And just let the music wash over your soul, wash over your body, your mind, and just land in this moment to be. So we'll go into a little bit deeper into the topic after the song. Okay. Take a deep breath. My eyes are watering. Take a deep, deep breath. And see if you could feel a little bit more spaciousness in your body and in your consciousness. And if you feel a little bit more present. So, repeating what I said before, the deepest belonging that we'll ever discover is not with another person, it's not a group, it's not a community, it's not even a culture. It's the belonging to ourselves and the belonging to life itself. I remember a quote from Mother Teresa. It went through a whole bunch of things. People will reject you, they will betray you, they will do. There's a beautiful quote, it's online. I wish I would have grabbed it for here, but you can look it up. It's this really beautiful quote. She's saying all the horrible things. You can be the nicest person in the world. People will betray you. You can do all the best things possible. People will hurt you. And then at the end, she says, but ultimately, it's just between you and God. And for me, God is a comfortable word. You might say spirit. You might say source. You might say universe. But there is a universal force that we are in perpetual relationship with. It's beating our hearts. It's growing our fingernails, right? It's waking us up in the morning. So take a deep breath with that. And that's why that is the prime relationship. It's between you and life. And when we have that focus, then it matters less what the external world brings to us. It'll still affect us. It'll still impact us, right? People still reject us and everything. But then we're no longer letting the world or other people define who we are. And that's the key. That's why on the Mount of Delphi, know thyself. That's really the journey. The other day, somebody asked me, how did I come to this path of coaching and learning? And I said, well, I don't really coach. It's more mentoring. And I thought about it in a new way. And I went, you know what? It actually, in the quickest way I could describe it was, it started as a pilgrimage to my own self. To know myself, to heal myself, to understand the dynamics that I didn't understand. Why do I get triggered here? What is that? Why do I, doubt myself in every room I go into? Why do I do this and that? And so that's been my life. I've been wrestling with myself, right? With what the world presented me and what something deeper in myself was saying is more true than what the world was showing me. And so my journey was that. And then it just organically grew into, working with other people now. And it's a beautiful thing. So because I'm here, that's kind of the proof that this works, right? Because there was a time I used to collapse in complete depression and despair. And I made a little, I still got German words in my head. I've been speaking German for like 3 weeks with the people that are working with us, and I'm still getting German words in my head. I wanted to say something different. Um, so uh, now I lost my train. That's so funny because I have like the odd little notes here of the key things I want to share, but otherwise I'm just riffing from what I'm feeling right now. Um, but when we can come home to that place of belonging in ourselves through the self journey of knowing ourselves, then life can't shake us to the degree that it once did. Now I can, yeah, I'm saying I was the proof of this working, because now things can still happen and life hasn't changed. It's still got the contrast, it's still got the challenges, it's still got it has the unexpected hiccups, but the navigation is what is different. And that's what my desire is to give you and give my clients, is the new ways of navigating these circumstances so you can stay whole and true in your own self without selling off parts of your own being just to belong and to get what you need, because it never is really enough. I know when I was doing that, it didn't matter. People could acknowledge me. People could, I had best-selling books already. I had 2 albums on Spotify. I had all these things that I'd done and so many years of success, and yet it was never enough until I came wholly home to myself. So even the accolades of the external world mean absolutely nothing. They will never satiate our appetite for belonging until we belong in our own self first. And then we can receive it. Now I can receive, like, wow, thank you. I can receive it with grace, right? Not with the extending and reaching for approval, which is a part of the process. So all of this is normal. This is all a part of the process of coming home to ourselves. So none of it is bad. None of it is wrong. It's just recognize there is a path that we all embark on that has similarities that they're just universal. And in seeing that, we can take a deep breath and exhale and say, oh, okay, it's not just me. I'm not alone. And then we can move from there, right? So the key living question that I have to place for today is, to explore the feeling and the felt sense of seeing what can never be taken from us when we remain in relationship with ourselves in life. So reflecting on this before the show, I was like, yeah, it's like that relationship to myself in life, that's my foundation now. And if I can give a visceral felt sense, it felt like I was always like here. I was always like, I was never here, or only momentarily. Every now and then I was like, I feel this, like, oh, that's me. But then I lose it to the searching and through the looking for acknowledgement. And nothing wrong with it. We need acknowledgement too. But it's the point of entry, how we're seeking it or receiving it. That's the key difference. Context and nuance matters. And that's something that in a lot of our new age spiritual coaching reality, a lot of nuance and context is sort of getting left at the side. And that's exactly what makes each journey unique and the same at the same time in different ways. So take a deep breath. And just bring to mind times when you have felt, this is me, right? So too often when we get rejected, our first questions are, why don't I belong? Why don't they like me? What's wrong with me? Why do I get rejected everywhere I go? Those are all my questions. And why do I lose myself in every room I go into? Right? I would go to gatherings and things like that, and it was like I would be a ghost of myself, and I didn't understand, why am I a ghost of myself there? And yeah, that's why, because that inner belonging wasn't yet fully in place, but I needed to go through that process in order to come home to that inner belonging. So it's a whole cycle. It's what we go through to get home. So what deepened my talk for today was yesterday I did something that I've been dreaming of for like over a year. And I created these affirmation cards about a year ago. And there's been tech glitches in getting them printed. So I've actually just finally ordered the cards, the printed cards to sell. But then I did a training yesterday. I'm always learning. That's a part of healing, is just always learning. I love learning. And I did a training with a guy named Russell Brunson, and he's leading in like ClickFunnels and AI and things like that. And I learned about an app, about helping me make an app. So yesterday I spent the whole day, and I created an app for my affirmation card, so people can just have it on their phone. They can do their daily card, they can do their 3-card layout, and then there's instructions, and I got it with my music, so when they pull the card, my flute music is playing. I'm like so stoked about this, and it was just, oh my goodness, just incredible joy. And I'm like, wow, it's happening. And it's finished and it's done. I thought it was launched live last night, but today I discovered it wasn't live yet. It was published but not live, so now it's going to be going live later this afternoon. But I was driving down Island, and I was remembering when I first moved to this island. And, you know, a lot of beautiful people here, but there were some other kinds of people there, here in my generation anyways. I always tend to connect with the people that were older. And holy cow, I mean, I thought I would fit in this island because there's like music, there's art, there's all this stuff. And I had a hard time connecting. And I'm like, why is it so hard? And one day I asked this woman who was sometimes nice to me, sometimes not. And I said, why is it so hard? What's going on? You know, I should fit in here like Flint. I should be, you know, connecting all over the place. And she looked at me up and down, like in a look of almost disgust. And she says, well, not everybody wants to have lunch with Gandhi. And I was like, what? And she was like the head matriarch at the time on the island. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And she says, well, not everybody's into improving their life like you are. I said, well, that's okay. I'm not here to change anybody. I'm just here to be me. And, you know, if somebody wants me to share something, I'm here to share. But I just like connecting with people. I'm a people person. And she just, you know, berated me because I like to do what I do, which is get to know myself and to, you know, find solutions for things rather than stay in the problem. And I don't gossip and I don't do drugs or those things. So there's a lot of places that I just didn't fit because of that too. But that was like, it ripped my heart open. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I had people here making rumors about me, you know, lots of passive aggressiveness, scrutiny, being misunderstood. You know, the feeling of not belonging was so strong. But my inner connection to this land and this island was stronger. And my connection to my inner self was already stronger too. It hurt, I cried, I had a lot of challenges. But what it actually did is it forged me. And so I was driving down the island after launching my app. And I also launched an album last week too. So it's been a really creative time for me. And I was just feeling the glow of it. And I'm like, wow, actually, you know what? I am so grateful for everybody for rejecting me, but really not out of a bypassing. It was like, if I hadn't been rejected in all the spiritual communities where I was rejected, and all the groups and all the communities and things like that, and not to say I didn't have individual people that I connected to always, but the group dynamic has never been my thing. It's very entangled quite often unless the facilitator is very clear. Otherwise it gets very entangled and people's stuff gets all messed up in there. All good. It's all a part of the learning. But I was like, finally like, oh my God, I really, really, really felt it with every fiber of my being, not just as a thought, but as a reality. Had they not rejected me, all the people that have rejected me in my life, I wouldn't have been brought to dig deeper to know who I am. That I could have broken at any time. I could have left the island. I could have collapsed. I could have retreated from life. And there were many moments I wanted to. Absolutely. But there was always this inner connection to life that I've had that I never lost. And that's what carried me forward. And that's what we need to develop, is what my life has shown me, that connection to life. And in the first episode of SoulsSpectives, I was talking about everything is relationship. relationship to self, relationship to life, relationship to money, relationship to work. How do we relate to all the multiple aspects of being human, being who we are, and life as it presents itself to us? So the main relationship, and that's how, when, even if we get rejected, once we have at least enough of a foundation, because it's still building in me, I still enter rooms and there's vulnerability, and then I just rebuild my foundation. It's not like it's done. I'm not untouchable. I can still feel, but the feelings don't take me over like they used to. And that's, again, the difference, right? We want to come to a place of belonging to ourselves and life in such a way that the world may, the environment around us may make us question ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as I don't let those questions make me less of who I am. Those questions should make me more of who I am. They should bring me to know myself more, not know myself less. And that's the difference there too. So take a deep breath. I have so many stories I could go on about all the rejections. Holy cow. And I'm sure you do too. Everybody does, because it's a part of our mutual experiences, right? And I know in one spiritual group I was a part of, and I was going through a transition in my life, and I mentioned it to one of the other followers. I said, yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. And she says, well, why don't you go ask the master? I'm like, why would I do that? This is my answer to find out. I have to find it. Because if I take an answer from somebody else, it's never going to be mine. So I just didn't understand it. The moment I said that, I was out. I didn't belong anymore, and all kinds of silliness happened after that. So it's really quite an amazing journey to meet rejection, but then rise above it anyways, and to come home to self. And that's my invitation through this episode, to take a look at those places, right? And you don't have to just leap to I appreciate and thank you everybody. But I've had that thought for a long time, that okay, everybody's serving me in some way. It's not justified the pain. It does not justify the abuse. But if I look at life from the lens of frequency and magnetism and harmonics and laws of compensation, all these universal laws that exist, then they all inform me that I have a say in how I perceive and what I do with what happens to me. And that choice is what directs my life, not what other people do or what has happened to me. And that, I think, is the strongest force that's helped me to get through so much. Right? So if I had belonged everywhere, I may never have had the opportunity to discover who I truly was completely. Right? I might have still had an okay life or whatever, but would I have been 100% me? Probably not, because being 100% me got me kicked out of those communities or disliked, right? So when I was trying to fit in, right? So take a deep breath. And the living principle of this is, life wasn't asking me in those moments, it's not like saying, will everyone accept me? Life's asking me, will you abandon yourself or will you discover yourself? And I think that's a key of every moment of our life. Do I abandon myself or will I discover myself? Fear, anger, resentment, sadness, all of these things, these emotions that are natural to being human, what do I do with them? Right? And if I abandon myself, that looks like me believing all the stories and not digging deeper to know myself. So take a deep breath. We're wanting to build trust with ourselves in life. We're wanting to create a foundation that we can meet life on our own terms, and that we can navigate in such a way that growth is the only outcome that we're choosing, we're declaring. And that's something that I said when I was in my 20s. No matter what I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow. No matter what happens, and that's the path I've taken, and it works. It works because then I'm giving a constructive direction to my experiences, not bypassing them, but a constructive direction, how to move with and through them. So creativity was my main thing. When even to this day, when I feel a funky energy or I feel a constriction or something moving through, I'll either play my flute, I'll paint, I'll dance, I'll drum, I'll create some art, on my computer, some new ads or things like that. So creativity is such a key thing. And I grew up thinking I wasn't creative. My creativity didn't open until I was in my 20s. Up until then, I had the belief I'm not creative. I can't even draw a straight line. That was my story. But now it's like I've got so much creativity, but it was just suppressed underneath the survival identity that I had created. The more that I healed the layers that built up that survival identity, the more my creativity just naturally came forward, right? And creativity isn't an escape. Why do we love the old artists? They painted from their anguish, from their despair, from their deepest longings in life. Creativity is a channel of participation in life, even in those dark and hard moments, and it helps us get through. So in my work, I always encourage my clients to find something creative and a creative outlet. I actually even started teaching my form of painting to my retreat clients, which has been really fun, and it's been really nourishing for them. So then they have a creative outlet when they even go home, right? They can just buy the supplies and they can do that. So take a deep breath. So when we refuse to accept somebody else's definition of us, that's the path less traveled, because we're usually looking to fit into the definitions again to get the belonging that we need to not be rejected. But what we really need to align with is understanding that relationship with others can only be true if I'm true to me. If I'm not true to me, then all my relationships, not completely false, but they're laced with a lot of falseness because I'm not aligned with who I truly am. And that's why that's such an important journey. And I read a quote this week too, beautiful quote, and it was saying something like, we don't know, we heal so that the way we interact with others in the world changes, and then they carry that, what we share, how we are, those people carry that forward to people we'll never meet, right? So for me, years ago when I discovered about epigenetics and generational trauma, it drew it deeper into me that, yeah, my healing's not for me alone. I'm healing generational patterns. I was the first woman to drive in my lineage here from my mother here. My sister, she never drove. Her mother never drove. My dad's mother never drove, and my sister never drove. And at 50 years old, I finally went and got my license. There was a generational block there, plus a trauma in my childhood. But, so at 50 years old, I finally got my driver's license. That's just 5 years ago. And it was just like there was a turning point. Okay, I got to break that pattern, right? So, and then that's creating a ripple of freedom everywhere, right? And then I've inspired some other people that were in their 50s to finally get their license too, which is really quite cool. But that's what we're here to do. Every new generation is here to break patterns of the old, not to carry them forward. We carry forward the good, but we got to recognize what's really good and useful and what's dysfunctional. And then we're here to break the chains of the dysfunctional patterns of our lineages that kept our ancestors trapped in fear or doubt or abuse or inner lockdowns where the true self wasn't able to come forward. So the things that can never be taken from us are our curiosity, our creativity, our capacity to love, our willingness to learn, our relationship with beauty, our relationship with nature, our relationship with ourself and life. Those become our home. So for the SoulsSpective of this week, I'm going to invite you to notice where you've been asking, why didn't I belong, or why don't I belong? And change that question to what has this experience been inviting me to discover about myself, about life, and about who I'm becoming? What's another pathway that I can go with that feeling of rejection and not belonging? That I can open to the vulnerability of meeting life with a new question, a new idea that can start a whole new movement within me of reflection and identification to find myself and come home to myself and come home to life. Because life, definitely does not always give us the experiences that we choose, but it never stops inviting us into deeper relationship with itself, with life, and ourselves. And perhaps that's the relationship That's the one that's meant to carry us home. That's the one that holds us through those dark moments. So, as always, stay curious, stay compassionate, and stay connected to yourself and that deeper flow of life. And you can these last shows I forgot. I have my LinkedIn account, Linktree account. It's going to be on the page here, and you can find me there and stuff that I'm doing. My cards will be there. My albums are there. Podcasts, anything. If you're curious to learn a little bit more, then you can find pretty much everything there. And thank you for tuning in. And I look forward to next week. And next week, I'm just going to bring all of these last 3 episodes together, do an integration. And thank you again for being here, and wishing you the most beautiful day, and that you can get a glimpse of how you already belong to life. You exist. You already belong. You are enough. You are worthy. You are loved. And I really hope that that can vibrate deeply in you and help release whatever can be released through that in this day and this coming week. Bless you. Thank you. Bye.
When you remember who you are, the world begins to change. Not because the world became different, but because you did. Every